Mr. Administrator, as you are aware, the Port of Long Beach, we are investing heavy on rail at the tune of $1 billion or plus over the next 10 years. How important do you see rail investment at seaports with regard to the supply chain in the United States?
Seeing that the Port of Long Beach has a comprehensive, robust rail program is critical to improving the supply chain fluidity that we want, and to look to the future is really important to do. The Port of Long Beach coming up with a comprehensive effort is really important because we know that rail works with trucks, works with roads, works with other modes of transportation in order to move these goods. And no single mode of transportation is going to carry all the goods. They have to work in combination. And for the port to recognize that is really important to do. And at the federal level, we definitely recognize it. Congress recognizes it, and the bipartisan infrastructure law is one way of funding those initiatives or helping fund those initiatives that the port already has in place.
Administrator Bose, we've talked about investment in infrastructure, specifically rail infrastructure. How important is that investment with regard to the U.S. supply chain, specifically enhancing the rail network?
So the West Coast is absolutely a gateway into the rest of the United States, and the Port of Long Beach plays a big part in that effort. And in particular with rail, you've got Pacific Harbor Line here, along with BNSF and UP that interchange with Pacific Harbor Line. BNSF, UP take the goods to the rest of the country, and places like Chicago. So we understand that places like Chicago actually have a downstream effect down here and vice versa. And we want to make sure that the system functions efficiently. So those places where there are opportunities for handoffs and opportunities to increase capacity for rail to play an even bigger role, especially in moving intermodal traffic that are containers primarily, rail can play a really, really important role. We know inherently rail as just moving goods can move those goods efficiently and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions as a part of our climate changing fighting efforts. But rail can play a really outsized role in that, but we have to make the investments right now in order to do that. And that's why efforts like the 10-year plan the Port of Long Beach has are so important, because if we don't make those investments now and have an eye towards those in the long term, we're not going to be able to do the things, build the things right now we need for the future.
With regard to international trade, in this globalized world that we live in today, how important is that investment in rail by our seaports here in the United States for us to remain competitive?
Rail improvements are absolutely a part of the nation's efforts to be competitive globally. And rail, again, needs to play a part with other modes of transportation. And rail has advantages moving things, especially long distances, for fuel economy reasons, for not emitting as many greenhouse gases as other modes of transportation. But we do need to make the investments to make sure the infrastructure is in place for the rail to be carried over bridges, through tunnels, through different parts of the country. Because again, rail travels through so many different geographies, and in a lot of these areas, rail has been there's been investment and reinvestment in the rail going on, but those investments often have a long lead time. And again, the federal government, along with the state, we can definitely fill those gaps, those missing pieces of the funding puzzle.
Every industry is enhancing or moving forward the implementation of technology. We refer to that as the digital transformation. In your view, where are we with regard to the importance of the investment in that digital infrastructure in the United States?
Transparency is essential in our efforts to fight the supply chain disruptions that are going on right now. The efforts of the Port of Long Beach through the Supply Chain Information Highway will be very helpful in the overall efforts. We know at the federal level that through the disruption fighting efforts that there are gaps in the data gathering and overall data that we have. And we always welcome more participation from our partners in identifying ways and tackling ways to provide us more information. At the federal level, the Federal Maritime Commission, the Surface Transportation Board, and the Department of Transportation, we definitely recognize that more data transparency will be helpful and will be useful tools in our efforts to combat the supply chain disruption. It will be helpful going into the future. And we know through this process that there's been gaps in data gathering and information, or just missing data and information. And we think that all these efforts can work together hand in hand, and we'll have a better outcome possible through these efforts.